Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of 5 Minute Gaming News, the show that may or may not be 5 minutes. Today in the news, we saw some pretty interesting things on the Nintendo Direct stream. So of course, almost all the news today is about Nintendo, but not in the way you'd think. One of the biggest moments of yesterday's Direct was a look at the new Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. And as much fun as it was to watch Twitch chat lose their mind with all the new footage shown, but for a good few of them that went away pretty quick when the internet discourse picked up around the game's price point, $70. Now I know before we even get into this, someone's gonna ask, Jesse, how much was Breath of the Wild? $60 is your answer, $59.99. Truly, in fact, this is the first time that Nintendo has charged more than $60 for a standard edition of a digital Switch game, according to Video Games Chronicle. So why the $10 price hike? Well, when asked, Nintendo's spokesperson said, "We determined the suggested retail price for any Nintendo product on a case-by-case basis." And while it isn't really clear exactly what that means, if maybe other games will be lower priced, but then sometimes they'll increase the price, it has led to online speculation that Nintendo's kind of gouging fans for the games they really want. But at the same time, they are technically following the industry standard price now, set by Sony with PlayStation 5 titles, and Xbox switching to $70 titles earlier this year. And sure, $70 for a 100-hour game, you could sell me on that being worth it. But thinking about exchange rates and how countries outside of Japan or the US, you oftentimes see the prices jacked way up. I have questions about that. And I'm sure a lot of the concerns come from people in those countries that have to pay more. And that's all really interesting and makes me wonder what Nintendo was thinking when earlier this week, on Tuesday, they said that fluctuations in foreign exchange markets had contributed to a decline in sales and profits, despite strong sales of Twitch games and hardware. So you would think the remedy is to make games more accessible and more affordable to those people in those places that can't get access to them as easy. But instead, I guess they're just going to jack up the price for everyone else? I get the discourse. All the pre-orders were at $59.99, and then they had to be changed to $69.99, and everyone's kind of like, are you still going to honor when I pre-ordered at $59.99? And it just seems like an unnecessary error, right? Like one that some good communication probably would solve a lot of the concerns. Also, while we're here in the world of Nintendo, Joy-Cons. More specifically, Joy-Con Drift. Because one of the biggest continuing stories throughout all of 2022 was Joy-Con Drift and how legal action and consumer protection agencies were looking into the fact that this might be something that we should look into and be concerned about. They're looking into it in the EU, in the UK, and here in the States. Well, here in the States, we've got an update. So for those of you who need a little refresher, Joy-Con Drift is this fun little problem that some of the detachable Joy-Con controllers on Nintendo Switch have, where movement is being detected on the device despite you not touching anything. It's such a problem that at last count, 40% of all users in the UK, for example, had experienced Joy-Con Drift. And it's become such an issue, like I said, that class action lawsuits are being considered or being filed against Nintendo. And in one case, here in the States, we finally have a ruling. And according to the judge, because when you set up your Switch and sign that EULA, end user license agreement, that right there has an arbitration and forum selection clause, which means you can't sue them. And so the case was dismissed. And so you might be wondering, but Jesse, what if I'm a kid and I have the console and my Joy-Cons break? You still signed it. And legally, according to the judge, it's your parents' responsibility because technically it's theirs. And so if they didn't read through anything, that's kind of on them. And what's crazy, but completely commonplace now, is that anytime you sign an EULA, be it for your phone or for whatever service you're signing up for, logging into something, every time you sign one of those, I promise you it has something similar. There's definitely something there where it's like, you can't sue us, instead we go to arbitration or we do this other thing so they can keep all the bad press kind of out of the press. And that's roughly what's going on here. And so sadly, any kind of recompense or any kind of thing dealing with the Joy-Con, you have to go through Nintendo. Whether they fix it or not, you're going through them. So the moral, I think, is be careful what you sign and expect that if you did sign something, even if it breaks, you're kind of on your own. Speaking of breaks, our long national nightmare is over and Scary Game Squad has returned. Videos, up on the channel all throughout the weekend. Hopefully you'll enjoy. That's it for me. I'll see y'all tomorrow for another episode of 5 Minute Gaming News.